Hello there. Welcome to the Future Founders Fireside Chat podcast series, The Journey. This series features weekly discussions about virtual reality, emerging immersive technologies, and entrepreneurship from the 2018 Future Founders VR Fellowship, sponsored by the City of Seattle's Office of Economic Development and produced by 6R. The purpose of this podcast is to learn about the journey that it takes folks to enter the world of VR technologies and entrepreneurship. We hope to create an engaging conversation around emerging technologies in Seattle. This is episode 10, featuring Diana Johns, Vice President of Exhibits at the Pacific Science Center, Seattle. Diana's professional life has been collaborative in nature, spanning professional theater, event production, and over the past several years, exhibit development and strategic planning. At Pacific Science Center, she is in the company of a staff of extraordinary people who work hard and creatively every day to share their passion for science with the public. Diana says, there are no normal days, and what could be better? She is interviewed by Future Founder VR Fellow Jakari Brown and Eduardo Rojas at the Pacific Science Center. Thanks for tuning in. We hope you enjoy the show.
Well, first of all, thanks for asking me to be part of this podcast series, because there are a lot of other people I know that are in this series that are bigger movers and shakers than me. So I appreciate being included. So I'm the Vice President for Exhibits at Pacific Science Center. And obviously we focus on science, technology, engineering, and math. We live in a community where technology is really important. And we have a really large startup economy. And so I feel like my role in all of this, where you're going to be talking later to people who are actually creating, my role, I feel, is one in which it's about getting the creators in front of the public that comes to the Science Center so they can see some of the really incredible stuff that's happening here, what people are doing, what all of you are creating. And the more that we can get that in front of people, the more people understand what the possibilities are, what the opportunities are, what the jobs are. That's what my role is.
Okay. Oh, yeah, dope. That hit on the thing. And so your organization, the organization that you work with, what is it?
It's this is Pacific Science Center.
And you are okay. And and you already gave it your mission. So what is the relationship between Pacific Science Center and Hyperspace XR?
So Hyperspace XR is a startup in residence here at Pacific Science Center. It's one of three, actually. And they have been with us since July of 2017. I was talking to someone earlier that we have a board member who is on a lot of advisory boards for a lot of local startups, and actually startups all over the world. And one day he said to me, you should talk to these people from Hyperspace. I really like them. And I've learned that when he says talk to somebody, I need to talk to them because he talks to so many people and he sees so many things being created. And so when somebody sort of rises above for him, I listen. And so I remember sitting in Issaquah at a picnic table on a sunny day talking to Jeff Ludwig, who's the CEO of Hyperspace, and getting information from him and his two engineers at that time, and just learning about their vision for Hyperspace, what they were trying to create. And it sounded wildly exciting to me, really, really out there. And I just liked the fact that they had this vision, this very strong vision, and they believed in themselves. They believed in their ability to do this. And their office was about 4 foot by 6 foot. I mean, it was a tiny little office, and they're trying to build this warehouse-sized experience. They couldn't even run their own prototyping because they had no space to do that. And so we said, we talked about it internally. We said, we have some space that we can put towards this. And what Hyperspace will do for us in exchange is they would dedicate some time, hopefully every day, out of their workday, because they're going to come here and work, take a couple of, hours out of their workday and engage with our guests and talk to them about what they're building, what the struggles are, where they're succeeding and where they're failing. And we literally have people who became members again because they want to follow Hyperspace and see where they land. Wow. And so it's just this awesome sense of this is happening in front of our eyes. As a guest, I have a front row seat to what these creators are doing. We know what these very innovative folks are doing with this experience. Yeah. So it's cool. And I'm just going to add one other thing. I almost hugged this woman. She was, we were doing a different VR experience, and she's a member, and she had her two daughters with them, and they were doing something. I don't remember what it was. And we got to talking, and she said, yeah, I've been following Hyperspace since they were over by the butterfly house. And I want my kids to know this is hard. This is hard to do. You've got to want to do this. Being a startup is just grunt work. You have to really want to do it. And I want my kids to understand it takes a lot of sacrifice. And I was like, I just want to hug you, because that's why we wanted them here. We want people to understand it's not magic. There's a lot of work that goes into making these things come to market that we
just press on the phone.
Exactly. It isn't magic. There's a lot of blood, sweat, and tears in this. And so anyway, that's
and it like you super hit, like even for myself, like my journey into learning about VR, like I'm definitely learning, like failing faster and learning literally how to navigate through those failures. And not just literally want to hit yourself, and even when everything in your body is like just give up and it's not for you, and just pressing through each one of those barriers. It's like hopefully you get so comfortable with it, like when that barrier comes up, like you're just ready to knock it down.
Because you're going to learn from it. That's the thing, it's not failure if you learn from it. And obviously that's what you're doing every single time. You're learning from your failure. You're making it better the next time. Because you've done that didn't work. So now we're going to do this. And having that mentality, that's part of what, as a science center, that's what drives science forward, is that experimentation, that trying, knowing that you're going to fail sometimes, but this is the only way to move forward. So I love the fact that Hyperspace is so generous with their time, with our guests, wanting them to see this process. And I'm just going to add one other thing.
Oh, no, you're great.
Well, just with Hyperspace, I mean, I would have comments from guests sometimes where they're like, oh, that's a new wall, or oh, look, they put a floor in. I'm like, yes, somebody gave them money. I mean, it's because that's part of it too. They're out there all the time trying to raise money.
Yeah, fundraising.
So, and it's so difficult. It's really difficult. And I've heard recently, and I don't know, maybe you've all heard something different, that it's all of a sudden much more difficult to raise money for virtual reality. That there's some sort of kind of block right now, and I think that there's a general sense that it's going to, or open up, but that there's I think part of it is, and Beverly, you and I were talking earlier, everybody's right at the same line, everybody's pushing at the same line almost, because there's not one answer. There's not one way to tell the story. It's all these things we have to learn about how to best use this really incredible technology. And, so everybody's racing. It is definitely a race. And
who's going to make that VR?
Who's where are all those signature things going to come from? And the only way that it's going to happen is to do what like Hyperspace is doing, which is just push it, really push it. So people get to see that real time here, and I think that's really cool.
Oh, that's amazing. And then you also mentioned that Hyperspace XR is also part of a few other organizations that have kind of been part of this exhibit called What is Reality, right? What was the process to like creating a VR exhibit at Pacific Science Center? How did that look like?
So I will first say that What is Reality is actually not a VR exhibit. What is Reality for us is our own experimental space.
Oh, okay.
So we're trying things too. We're trying to figure out how to, just like, Beverly, you're trying to work on how to tell stories in virtual reality. We're trying to learn how to do new kinds of experiences that aren't that don't cost $4 million. You know, so exhibits are expensive. So what does it mean to create an exhibit in the 21st century that it's meaningful, that people can interact with, that can be more nimble, more agile? And I don't know those answers. You know, so the only way for us to learn how to do that is just to keep pushing always, and playing with materials, playing with technology. And so what is reality? When we as a Science Center said, okay, we're going to step back. I don't know how many of you know Science Center very well, but we used to do these really big, wonderful exhibits. Like Terracotta Warriors was the last one we did here, and we had King Tut, and we had, you know, so some you know, things that I mean, I loved them a lot. Yeah, I mean, it was awesome. It was actually the most attended exhibit that this institution has had in 50 odd years. The thing about those kinds of things in our business is that a lot of times they suck out all the oxygen, right? So people sort of forget the rest of what you're about. And they're like, I'm going to come see King Tut. Well, but, you know, what about everything else?
Yeah.
And so when you say we're not going to do traveling exhibits for a little while, we're just going to take a little break, focus on the whole Science Center. And so that's where we are. So that space where what is reality is right now, that's where Terracotta Warriors were and King Tut was. And we just said, we're going to take this 10,000 square feet and we're going to play. We're just going to experiment. Well, when you talk about what is reality, I mean, how do you answer that question? You can't. Right? Because everybody's got their own reality. And then it just was perfect. You know, virtual reality and augmented reality, you got to have that be part of it because they're different realities. It changes the way you see reality if you're talking about AR. So it will never not be a part of that space because it has to be. The other thing is because so much stuff is being created here in Seattle and there's so much creativity. So we really try to get, like, the Witching Tower, when we were talking about that earlier, Mariana play tested here. And Edie Powell, she's a wonderful game designer locally, and she's Eve Powell.
That name sounds super familiar. One of our podcasts.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, she's fabulous. I mean, she's just this. So she play tested Epic Snow Day Adventure here. And so she probably came 4 or 5 times. And the best part of that was watching kids talk to Eve Powell and just have their minds blown when they found out here's this young woman of color who owns her own game company and made that game. Yeah. And it was like, what? All this stuff, all this really amazing stuff right here. So
you made it,
I can do that, you know. You did this. I can do that. I see myself. I could, you know. That's what I hope these kids see is that, you know, they see that ability in themselves. So having people bring their things here to play test, we have a really great public that is very diverse. They're going to bring a lot of different. Most of them have a lot of them. I would say at this point, about 75% of them have never done virtual reality, have not been exposed to AR. And so their first experiences of these technologies for many of them are here. How fantastic that they're doing something like Epic Snow Day Adventure or Tilt Brush or, you know, I think Jude Dye is another local developer who has a thing called Lanterns. Yeah, you know, just these really incredible experiences that it's not a shooter. And I'm not an anti-game person by any means, but there's so many better stories to be able to tell. There's so many, not better, but different.
Diverse, yeah, there's so many things, yeah. So
many things. And then, you know, also there's the whole application of things using virtual reality for PTSD, for treating phobias, for rehabilitation, they're doing, I know VR is getting used quite a bit in memory tests. There's
hospital,
absolutely surgery. There's simulated surgery. Then, you know, there are folks that are working on the sharing platform for VR. Like Pluto, Pluto VR. Mm-hmm. I mean, there's just so much stuff happening here that it will always be a part of what is reality. we want people to think about what is real. So there is that sort of, macro, or what am I trying to say? The bigger theme there.
Yeah.
But VR is a really great way to go someplace else, take off that headset and come back and realize that you did actually go someplace else.
Yeah.
It's like, it's reading a book, but you're doing it with a headset.
Sometimes you don't want to come back.
No, well, I was doing, the first time I did, my very first VR experience was Blue.
Mm-hmm.
The really nice one where you're standing on the sunken ship and this blue whale swims up to you. And I thought, I'm not going back. I'm never going to dive. This is the closest I'm going to get to diving.
Yeah.
And this is awesome. I can't drown. All these things were going through my head, and I felt at such peace. It was just such a great experience. Yeah.
I remember our day at Rainier Beach where we all put the things on. Like, I was definitely shocked, like more than shocked. I was going crazy for like 10 minutes. Like, I couldn't believe it. Like,
what was the experience?
Skydiving, right?
Was it the sky? No, it was the skydiving too, where we looked at.
Well, we were at Kronos.
Yeah.
You talking about Kronos? Or
No, there was something I think we did. Oh no, it was at Kronos because you guys.
It was the
didn't
skydiving thing that you got in. You were like, whoa.
Okay, yeah, and it was the plane.
Paragliding. Oh, I guess maybe I just did the paragliding.
Paragliding. Oh yeah, where you're on the thing like that. Yeah, no. The first experience was the skydiving, and I was just like, wow. I was looking I couldn't looking to the left and then looking to the right, and then it's like you're literally looking to the left. There's different things like peripheral vision. Yeah, like the 360. It was a crazy experience. Yeah, it was dope.
Seems like you're talking about Pluto VR, a lot of these organizations that we're getting familiar with, but you're also in a space that, a museum, they have a lot of money and all the traditional museums have those exhibits, right?
Mm-hmm.
So how did that process, did you know people? How did you get introduced to VR, and how were you able to sell it to the to Pacific Science Center to be like, this is what we need to do?
So I want to disabuse everybody in this room about museums having a lot of money. We're not for profit. Mm-hmm. We're not owned. We're a private foundation, so we don't get any money from the city. We don't, we get maybe 4 culture grants and things like that from the county. Most of the money that we get are the tickets that people buy at the gate. So that is 3/4 of our revenue. And so the whole What is Reality initiative that is now, it'll be a year old in 2 weeks. I had $0. I had $0 for that. And so then you have to get creative. When you don't have any of those resources, you have to get creative. And you guys know this as well as anyone. And so part of that was just getting out there and starting to meet people. And Heather Zweig at Pluto, at the time, she was just wonderful. Heather knows everybody. Mm-hmm. And so she's like, you should talk to this person and this person and this person. And I started going to meetups, and I'm kind of a shy person. I really am, actually. Mm-hmm. And so I'd go to these meetups. I'm like, I don't know anybody. And, but you put your name up there and you do these experiences, and people are so nice. I mean, they're so dang nice. And I'm going to tell you another story about Block Project here shortly. But anyway, so I started going to meetups, and I met Booty here. We did a happy hour. We wanted people to know about what is reality, what we were trying to do. Mm-hmm. And so that just, you start meeting people, and kind people introduce you to other people. And so then the Hyperspace, the board member, we got them in there. And really, that's kind of it. It just sort of starts like a rolling stone, right? It just starts gathering moss or debris or whatever.
Avalanche effect.
You what?
Avalanche effect.
Yeah,
snowball
yeah,
effect.
a gentle avalanche.
Yeah, I was gonna say snowball, not.
Yeah, but that's that idea of you start something and it starts to move and other things start to move with it. I would actually say that we're not. I mean, I'm excited to see where we keep going with this, and we're having lots of conversations, and I can't say too much about something I'm sort of super excited about because we don't know if it's going to happen yet. But if it does, it would get people in front of. It would get people in front of a lot of equipment, and be a play space if we can make it happen. We don't want to have an entry barrier for people. It's expensive. It's expensive. And again, like I said, 3/4 of our revenue comes through our gate. So we have to sell tickets, but we're not trying to shut people out. So we have an access program, which is fabulous. And it is any foster or homeless youth gets in free. They get a free membership. They can come anytime. It's the same membership as somebody who buys a full membership. A family of 4 or a family on any kind of assistance, we don't ask what it is. If they just tell us they're on assistance, they get a $19 full membership for a year. So that's same access to IMAX films, any lectures that we're having, coming to exhibits. And what we're finding is that folks who are in that access pipeline come 2 to 3 times more often than other folks. And so it opens up a door that we didn't have before. And so if you have that larger audience and you're able to get them in front of these experiences, again, they can see themselves in there as well. If we just get people curious about it, then we've done a big part of our job. So that's exciting to me because I feel like, it was the access program is something we've talked about for years. And we got a new CEO a couple of years ago and he's like, why haven't we done this yet? So next thing I know, we were there. So it's awesome. Did I even answer your question?
No, definitely. I think you reached around it. And so it seems like you also had support from above.
Oh, yeah. And the CEO, I mean, my boss, yes. He's a driver on a lot of this. So Will Doherty is the CEO of Pacific Science Center, and he doesn't come from a museum background. He comes from an entrepreneurial background, business, innovation, and he's insatiably curious. He's just curious about everything. And so he's like, curiosity. Apparently in his home, he's not allowed to say the word curious anymore because his family's like, enough, stop. But he just drives it home all the time. Ask, be curious, and really that's what that is science. Why is lava flowing in Hawaii? What's making that happen? It's just things that you see, observable phenomena, and you get curious about it. And that's why we actually have a lot of the stuff that we do. It's all people being curious.
That's a good definition. I'm going to take that with you for life. I never thought of science like that.
Yeah, it's all about asking questions. It's all about it. It absolutely is. It's just curiosity about your world, about your universe. And I think, and I think part of it, and that is actually a big piece for me. I think that I feel like we teach in buckets, like science is over there, and history is over there, and art's over there, and English is, whatever, languages are their own thing. And they actually are all like this. They all mash together, they run together, they collide with each other. The process of science and the process of art is very, very similar. It all starts with observation and being curious about, if I did this, what happens? They're very similar. But we have an artist in residence program too because of that. Because artists follow a process very similar to scientists.
Oh, that's dope.
So lots of support at the top.
That's great.
Yeah.
Oh no, that's crazy. Even thinking of art and science in the same manner, I might be a little off top, but still
no.
Man, that's dope to even think about, because I got a lot of friends that would have explaining it to them in that type of context, would more get their curiosity, be like, you might not like science, but I guarantee you're curious about a lot of the things in the world. They might be like, I do think about how the world works and stuff.
Yeah.
Like, so that's a great way to start putting things.
I mean, how do you know that something is... and this gets really interesting when you're talking about these technologies. Mm-hmm. And it's going to get more and more interesting because we already know we have a problem with truth. So you start adding, I guess in some ways, let's just talk about Photoshop. Even early on, just this ability to manipulate photos. So then how do you know it's actually, is that a real photo or is that, and we know people screw around with that all the time. You think about the 2016 election and all the stuff that frankly, the Russians were doing. And it's like, you're getting jinked around by people who are manipulating what you see. And so you have to get really good about asking questions because otherwise, how do you know if something's true? And so when you talk about augmented reality and what happens if you're so in the VR realm that you forget that isn't real?
Yeah.
But then what happens when some of that is? And it's very it's going to keep psychologists and sociologists, I think, busy for a long time.
Yeah. And, I was going to say, when the game isn't real, I mean, when you think it might be real, I guess that's like how they could say, that's the best VR game I've ever played.
Right.
Or something like that.
Yep.
But, so I was wondering if maybe you could tell us about your journey in event production and interest in emerging technologies.
So my background is theater, and I was a stage manager. I was not a performer. I'm not the creative, but I am a great supporter of the creative. So as a stage manager, my job was to help the director make sure that the vision came to the stage. And so I did that. That was really my first career, and I did that for about 15 years. And my home base here was Seattle Rep, but I would work at various theaters around the country. And then I sort of went on this journey of events, like special productions, or producing special events that were all one-offs. And the really fun thing about that, especially when I had money, like I was getting bankrolled to do certain things, is I could create environments. That's what I was hired to do, create the environment for the event to happen. And when I ended up at a game company called Wizards of the Coast, and they make a game called Magic the Gathering, and that was a really great job because I got to do that all around the world. And so I got to work with different cultures, and I got to work with a lot of really creative designers and artists to create these environments. So my degree, I have an MFA in production management, kind of really essentially production management. And so that's really what I do. I liked my job. The things that get me really excited is to take stories and put them on their feet one way or the other. So whether it's a play or whether it's an exhibit or whether it's just an experience that you want people to have, that's really the focus of what I do here with my team.
Oh, so you would that's dope. So you would be definitely the person to talk to about where to get some dry ice.
Tell us about the most immersive event that you've done. That you would compare to virtual reality, but that you've actually set up in reality without that technology, where you've changed the reality that people experience in that event without any headsets, without any technology.
I think it would be an exhibit. We did an exhibit called Lucy's Legacy, The Hidden Treasures of Ethiopia. So Lucy is an Australopithecus. She's a hominid. She was found in the 70s. she is 2.5 million years old. In Ethiopia, they call her the mother of Ethiopia. She's a tiny little hominid, precursor to us, and her discovery was, took the world by storm. And so I was in the 70s, and make a long story short, in 2007, we were able to bring Lucy's legacy to Pacific Science Center. The problem was that the fossil itself is this beautiful fossil, and there was this really cool room that was created for it. But the exhibit direction that the original institution took with it was kind of strange, in that it was more of a travelogue in Ethiopia, and all the walls were white and all the vitrines were white, and there are these really vibrant pieces in it that seemed out of place in this very sterile sort of exhibit. So we brought it to the Science Center, and I spent a lot of time working with the Ethiopian community to help design the exhibit. And so I worked with there were about 5 of them, but about 3 primary Ethiopian artists who created the sort of design motifs for the space, working with the designer that we'd hired. And they just helped tell the story about their homeland. And so it became, and the full design credit goes to the designer, of course, but it was this rich, colorful, warm experience that
complemented.
And the music, the music was Ethiopian music from all over the country, and it's a huge country, and it's like the United States. It's got fertile areas and it's got dry areas, and it's got all of this, and I knew, and I still have people come up to me today and say, "Oh, you guys did that Lucy exhibit." But the thing that I knew when we had achieved that sort of full experience for people was when folks from the Ethiopian community said, "This reminds me of home." And so I would say from an exhibit experience, we got that because the community helped design it. That was probably the closest, I would say, in terms of an immersive experience where you felt like you were in a place without a headset. I will add, though, that Pacific Science Center has an experience here every single day that I tell people is the analog virtual reality, and that is the Butterfly House. Because have you been to the Butterfly House?
No,
we gotta
I've
get you
walked
into the
past
Butterfly
this
House.
place literally.
Okay, well we gotta get you in the Butterfly House.
Yeah.
Because it's a tropical butterfly house. So when you walk in, it smells good because all these tropical plants are blooming. It's warm. It's really warm. And these butterflies are flying in your face, and some are landing on you, and you can't have the same experience in there, and it's completely immersive. So to me, that is the analog virtual reality experience at Pacific Science Center, because you are completely in that place. It's not like any place else at the Science Center. You walk into a different world.
Can we see that today?
No. I'm so sorry, but I will make sure anybody who wants to come back, I'll get you tickets, and you come back and just enjoy it. Because it really, that is a perk of the job, especially this time of year. You're like, it's raining and it's cold, and I'm going to go to the Butterfly House.
Relax.
And it's just beautiful. The butterflies are beautiful. The plants are beautiful. You get transported. So it's that same sense of being in a completely different place.
And how do you see people like yourself who can create those type of experiences without a wire? How do you see those types of people fitting into the virtual reality, augmented reality, XR experience and field? Where do you see that marriage? Where do you see the result of that type of marriage?
Yeah, that's a really good question. And I think you all are trying to figure that out, frankly. You mean more along, like you're thinking about how to translate stories in virtual reality.
Well, when I talk about production design, the ability to create an experience here in this room, transforming this room into something without a wire, without electricity, without Wi-Fi, is a skill in and of itself. But it's the same skill that people use inside virtual reality. There are people who exist who understand the essence of how you do something like that. You're one of those people. How do we bring the people with those skills into the emerging XR field? Because those skills already exist.
Yeah. So let me just calibrate a little bit here. So I would, for me, it's no. So it starts with what are you trying to create, right? So what is the experience that you're trying to evoke, or what is the emotion that you're trying to evoke, and so I think I go back to the conversation we were having about the witching tower. I was just enchanted being in that experience because she kind of told me what it was a little bit beforehand. I'm like, oh, it's got scary stuff and, castles and broken down and, I like that kind of stuff. So the moment I was in, I was hooked because they knew how to evoke that emotion. Architecturally, with the art. And so I feel like people do sort of know how to do this already because taking what I do from an exhibit perspective, and remember, I'm not the creative.
But you are creative.
I mean, I am creative, but I also my better skill set, I think, is not driving, but working with other people who are the creatives to help them get where they're trying to go, and to try to keep everybody focused on what is that emotion that you're going after, what is that concept.
And you were a stage manager.
Yes.
For theater.
Yes.
And
yeah.
that is a creative skill set, right? Because I write. I'm a writer, so I'm a playwright too. So, so when you said that, I was like, oh, you have the ability to take that vision and realize it, right? And so, or help someone else realize it.
Yeah.
I'm just curious. I know that this is a hard question because all these questions are new, right? Because the space is new in this current.
And you're thinking about it.
Right. Well, I just thought about it. As you were talking about the butterfly exhibit, and someone created that, right? You were talking about the Lucy exhibit. People created that. That is virtual reality without a wire.
Okay. So okay, that's fair. I see what you're saying there.
Yeah.
But how to push it into a wired experience?
Yeah, I don't. That, and I guess just something that popped up in my head, like, that is a powerful experience. How do we take that skill that you have and that others like you have and transfer that into virtual reality? Because I feel like, I don't know, I feel like that...
Ooh, that is a super good question. That got me thinking now. I would say, like,
I didn't mean to put everybody stuff.
No, it's good.
You're good. That's controversy is good. I'm sorry. I would say, if I was thinking about that, I'm interested to see like what the thing that you're talking about, the put everything on, because I feel like that's what it would be like.
The hyperspace.
The five senses.
Yeah.
The five senses, like the five senses. I meant like, other than like having VR and then watching somebody like go through that experience, I'm not sure how you would do that. So,
well, sorry. Please. Well, one thing I was kind of like, not kind of around what Beverly was going around, but I was really curious about too is like, it's you talking with, sorry, I forgot what his name was, the staff at Hyperspace XR, the developer.
Jeff Ludwig, the CEO?
No, Nick,
Yeah.
Nick. So, it seemed like you had a very good understanding of what the abilities were and how, they were creating a story and kind of the future that they have. Like, what are recommendations that you might have for other folks that are not so, they may be creators or storytellers, but they don't know the technical ability that goes into it and all the the nitpicky stuff, right? How do you recommend coming to learn that?
We have a really good relationship with AIE, which is over at Seattle Center, and that is I always get the acronym wrong. Interactive Entertainment, and so it's a school, and I was talking to Jeffrey, I think his last name is Smith, but anyway, he's one of the students there, and he and I were talking one day, and he said, he said, I'm an artist and I've got this idea, how do I do that? And I was learning too, right? Because I was just starting from the very beginning and going to these meetups, and I said, I think we just have to be talking to a lot of people all the time. And he's more shy than I am. So, but I see him out all the time. And he's out there connecting with people and trying to make stuff happen. He has a vision, but he's the artist. He's not the coder. He's not any of the other technologies. And so I think you just have to find those partners that want to experiment as well. And I love the hackathon. I think I just love the game jams and the hackathons because I see these teams come together. And you did this. You had this really fun experience at the end of a very tiring weekend. But it's that thing. It's like, I'm a writer. The first hackathon I went to, this woman stood up in front of everybody and said, I have no skills, but I have an idea. I want to do a dancing thing. That was her whole thing. She's like, and I'm enthusiastic and I could be a really good cheerleader. That's what she brought to the table. And at the end of the weekend, she had teamed up with an architect, who was trying to learn how to use VR in architecture more. She'd worked with this team, and they came up with this crazy dance video in outer space. And it was hilarious. It was so much fun. I'm like, you guys are awesome. I mean, it just was that wonderful creativity that came together that really clicked for all of them. And I think that's what you have to do, I think you just have to find those people who want to play and just play.
You have to be out there. Is there something special about Seattle? Have you gotten to interact with? I'm sorry. Let me see how to frame this. I'm curious if there's other, facilities like the Pacific Science Center that is also doing this type of stuff, or.
Well, I mean, yeah, I think that Mohai has an innovation center, and I think that they play around with a lot of different things.
I'm sorry, Mohai?
Museum of History and Industry. That's just in South Lake Union.
Oh, it's the big, on the water.
Yeah. Awesome place. Awesome. And then, the Space Needle. The Space Needle, they are part of... I'm trying to think. Sorry, I get all my game jams and hackathons all mixed up. But they're participating in a hackathon in February that is about game. I guess it's game development. But I think a lot of places are trying to step in. Then there are places like Commotion, Booty's T-shirt. There are incubators. There's a lot of cross-pollination that happens at places like that. WeWork.
WeWork, that one. Surf incubator.
And Surf incubator, yeah. So there are things cross-pollinate when you get into those kind of environments. They also cost money. So I think that, which is fine. I mean, everybody's got to pay their bills at the end of the day. And so don't get me wrong, but I also think that there's probably, that meetup, that meetup sort of world people want to meet, like they want to know you, because they want to know what you're interested in. What are you trying to do? What are you trying to create? And that is usually a pretty low bar. I think it's like $5 for a lot of meetups just to get into them.
Yeah, or a donation.
Or a donation, exactly. So meetups, I think, are a really good tool to connect and find out what other people are doing. I would be shocked if you didn't find somebody that you're like, hey, that person's that's sort of an interesting direction. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, Jeffrey's sort of my hero, and I mean, he's one of my heroes, but because he really is a shy guy, but he's like, I want to do this. He has such a strong vision in his head, and he wants to find the people that are going to help him realize that, and he'll learn too. So, mm-hmm. I would just say, put yourself out there. It's hard to do, but really, especially in Seattle, because Seattle is. I don't know if it's the water.
Rain.
It is the rain. Yeah, I don't know, but this is a place that is known for its innovation globally. So you couldn't be in a better place to be playing with this technology right now. You couldn't.
Oh, that's dope. That's inspirational.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was also curious. So thank you for answering that. Going more into the depth of the local community, but I'm also interested in like, how do other museums look like? Have they asked you like, hey, this is really interesting, what's going on, and how do you do that?
So that's a really good question, and actually, I was at 2 conferences in October, sort of bookended the month, and the first one was a small conference in Detroit. About 60 people there representing various kinds of museums. And that was the conversation. What's happening in augmented and for AR and VR? How are you using it? How are you looking at experiences in general? It was a really good conference because everybody's trying to answer that. And Denver Museum of Natural History and Science, and it's a big museum. Yeah. They just recently opened up an arcade in their museum that is focused on virtual reality and AR. Wow. It's an extra ticket, and it's kind of like the way that my colleague from there explained it. It's sort of like the place in Ballard. I'm trying to think of the name of that.
Portal VR.
Yeah, Portal. So you buy time, and you can do these experiences. And he fully supports his organization, but he was disappointed that that's the direction that they want, because I think he wanted to be doing more what we were doing, which is providing experiences for people, like not only just having the fun of the technology, but showing sort of the expansiveness of what the technology can do. I would say that there isn't a museum out there right now that has the answer on this. What's the best way to put VR, AR out there? People were curious about what we were doing. We've had people come here and sort of check it out. I'm equally curious about what other people are doing. Some museums have they have deeper pockets. So they actually have some developers on their staff who are creating experiences, and that's pretty awesome. We don't have that. So, which is why, again, I'm super interested in being connected with this community, because our community is doing really interesting things. So I would say it's kind of like all of us being interested in this technology right now. Everybody's trying to figure out their piece of it. For museums, it's really hard. None of this equipment is made for commercial use. So, literally, like, we're running Life of Us, which is a really fun social VR experience. And if you haven't done that, you need to come and do this. All right. So you've done it, right?
Which one?
Life of Us.
No.
Booty, you did it. Tell me you did it. Okay.
We did our.
Yeah. So Life of Us is it's made by Within. So Within is the sort of online catalog for a lot of these experiences, 360 experiences. And they really wanted to push the technology. And this was a year and a half ago at this point. So now it's old in a way, but they wanted it to be social. They wanted you to be able to talk to each other and see each other in this experience. So it's 1 billion years of evolution in 8 minutes. And it's hilarious. I mean, it's just funny. And it's, it takes a lot of license. Pterodactyls didn't breathe fire, but, so it has the art piece of it too. It also, from a storytelling perspective, I love this. Evolution, a lot of our evolution was, we were in water, right? It took a long time to hit land, and the experience echoes that. So the bulk of the experience is underwater. So once you hit land, it goes very, very quickly, just like real evolution. So I loved that storytelling piece of it. They took that nuance and they put it into that experience. Anyway, it's very hard to keep that equipment going. And things just fall apart. We've had over 30,000 people go through the VR micro theater, and it's not built for that. The equipment's just not built for that many people. And plus you have to clean it after every single use. So that wears away. And
yeah, I could bet, all those people, yeah.
Yeah, it's, and so I'm sort of frustrated by HTC and Oculus, not frustrated, but a little exasperated that they haven't seen us as allies in, really trying to get this equipment out there and getting people exposed to it. I'm trying to remember exactly how you said that, but more mainstream mass adoption. Yeah, it's hard to do. How many people can afford to buy an Oculus?
Yeah.
Oculus
Vive, HTC Vive,
the Vive and
any of them.
Right now, I mean, I know it'll come down eventually, but and so in the meantime, how do people get exposed to it? How do they?
I think the biggest thing is
the PC, the phone.
Phone right now.
Yeah.
The phone, and I think Oculus Go is a good entry. That's why I'm I just mentioned you guys so excited about the Go. Well, the Go, because it's such a cheap price point. The Quest is even going to be $500, right?
Mm-hmm.
How much is an Xbox? How much is a PS4? It's in that $200 range, right?
Yeah, it is.
So, I am not an economist or anything like that, but I'm just making a wild guess that the vast majority of people can wing $250. Right?
Mm-hmm.
And anything beyond that, you start getting into a niche type technology, right? So that's why I'm kind of sticking with the Oculus Go until other things show up in that price point. Now, I may get a Quest for myself, but I don't know that I would vote for it if I was trying to make money.
Yeah.
Because you need lots of people on that headset. And right now, Go is 1 million people?
I don't know. I was actually just curious to know how well it's doing, but I've also been watching for when is there going to be the demand, the number one Christmas present everybody wants is a headset.
Yeah,
when is that Christmas coming? Is it this Christmas with the Go finally?
Well,
2020.
I know that there are 1 million Go's that have been sold.
Well, we've got 18 of them. So, no, seriously, we bought every single one of them. But because you... the price point is we could do it, and so we've been using that to expose people to a lot of different 360 content.
And there are actual full games on there now, and people are doing some really interesting stuff.
Are there?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I need to get
virtual reality. There's another game on there. I can't remember the name of it.
You like the Anne Frank one?
The Anne Frank.
Oh, the Anne Frank. Yeah, that is. Yeah.
There's some cool 360 stuff too. That's really it feels very interactive. Very, you've got people sitting down next to you with their arm around you, and I mean, it's amazing.
I think I've played every free shooter game in there at least 5 times. When you said, I went straight to the shooters. But even those, you can only play so many of those.
There's some really cool space games on there too, And I've been really experimenting with the Go.
Well, I'm going to have to follow up with you after this because I want to get some of your thoughts on some of the staff and what is reality. They spend a lot of time looking at the materials. Obviously we have to be family friendly, and
Right.
so there's that piece of it too. The one thing about the Go that's tricky in a public institution. Kids get this stuff, right? They technology is not intimidating to them at all because they are digital natives, and so I say all that to say if you can't do like mommy locks on things, those go all kinds of places that the next person was like, what was that?
Yeah.
So we have to. So it's tricky because you can't lock Goes. You can turn off the Wi-Fi, but all you have to do is turn the Wi-Fi back on. It's not hard to find. And so we spend a lot of time trying to figure out how to mommy proof things.
It's difficult that you can't see the screen, even when like trying to show people. You can't like on the Rift with Vive. You'd always have a copy of the screen.
Yeah.
To see what's going on. What do you use the Oculus Ghost for?
Well, we're using it for a lot of things right now. Oh, so this brings me very neatly back, thank you, to the Block project. So the Goes, we have a VR bar. So literally it's a bar, and we put up headsets, and people can just the Goes, and they can sit there, and we've got sort of menus of content for people. I think you're talking to Sandy and Gretchen maybe later, and they were the ones who helped us get that set up. And then let me see. So why do we have so many of them? The VR bar, and then we got them for, there's a local developer who's creating an experience on one of the poles of Mars.
Oh. Wow.
And they do a lot of educational VR content. And so they're playtesting here and developing the experience with us, actually, in our planetarium manager. And so they're using Goes for that experience. And then the last thing is, so I was at a meetup, and I was doing this museum experience that was a blast. It was so much fun. It was like the best museum in the entire world, and you could break things, and you could like scrape paintings, and it was awesome. Like all the things you're not allowed to do, but it was fantastic. So I was talking to the designer afterwards, and going on and on about this experience, and I just hit it all. I just really liked him and his team, and so that was Jeff Rayner of a company called Mixed Reality. So Jeff came here, and we had a sit down meeting just to talk about possibilities, maybe working together. And he started talking about this TEDx talk that he'd gone to, and this father and daughter architect team that he really, the TED talk really moved him. And he went up to them afterwards, and he said, "I work in virtual and augmented reality. I think I can help you do what you are trying to do." And what they're trying to do is something called the Block Project. And it's through and they started this not-for-profit called Facing Homelessness. And so as architects, with a lot of compassion and a desire to make a difference and try to get their arms wrapped around the homelessness crisis in Seattle, they said, okay, we understand the geography of Seattle. There's not a lot of ability to build out. It's not Houston. You can't keep moving further and further out. Where the land is locked up is in people's backyards. And so they came up with this idea of putting a block home on every residential block in Seattle. Mm-hmm. And so Jeff Rayner's telling me about this, and the two things that blew me away about it was these are tiny homes, but they're complete homes. They have bathrooms, they have a kitchen, they're complete homes. And what Jeff said to them was, here's what I can do. I can create an augmented reality app for you so that you can, prospective homeowners who are interested in putting a home in their backyard, you can map it to their backyard and show them what a house would look like in their backyard. Mm-hmm. So they could get a sense of the scale and what that would feel like. So that was just a great way of taking that technology and using it for something like this. Fast forward, I met with the father and daughter, and we actually have a Block Project exhibit here right now. And it includes one of the block homes. And we are using the Goes for people who can't So block homes are not ADA accessible yet. That requires a whole different piece of real estate in order to build ramps into the block homes. So if you're in a wheelchair, you can't get into the block home. And so we wanted to create a video of what it felt like to navigate the house from the outside. The other thing that we're using the Goes for is Bobby is the first block home resident, and he is this charming Native American 75-year-old man.
Oh, Robert? Does he have long hair and he throws a football?
No. No, Bobby's
my friend.
Oh no. Bobby is he's a Native American who was on the street for 10 years, and is 75 years old, just full of vim and just the life. And so he gives you a tour of his home, and so that's on the Go. And
he's on like
yeah. So he gets so Mixed Reality filmed him, put him into 360, and then uploaded our Goes. We actually just got the latest version of that today, and it's wonderful. He's wonderful. He did it in one take, so he's like, "This is my bathroom, and this is my kitchen, and my bed goes in and out, and here's where I keep my clothes." And he's just so charming. Yeah. So I think the Goes are fantastic for that kind of thing. They really they're the right price point, and they just do that kind of thing really well.
Yeah, I would like to see that experience too. There's this one thing. What's that scanner thing too? That would maybe be a great experience for people in the museum. Structure sensor, yeah, where like you can like have like an iPad and like scan somebody's whole thing.
That sounds very cool.
Yeah, like if there was a museum like that where people could like scan themselves and then put themselves in a video game, see themselves doing
So is that new? Is that
it's pretty new,
is it?
Pretty new?
Laura James was using it.
In her
in her piece.
But it's only like 200, isn't it?
Laura James?
Like
Plus
the diver Laura?
The phone.
In which piece?
Her lecture, like underwater lecture. She was
Oh, that's right. Yeah. Okay.
Well, but that's also an example of, remember during our VR challenge how we had one of our friends from Commotion with the photogrammetry, which had 50 different cameras, and that's what it took to do the same thing that this little gadget does now.
Yes, I'm curious
we are watching leaps and bounds like every 6 months.
I know, and that's the other thing too is where are you going to spend your money? Because you have to keep up with it, but then there's only so much money. So how do you sort of try to?
You mean as an organization, or it's just?
I would say both as somebody who's
stretch your dollar.
Yeah.
Black Friday.
I think like what we have now in South Seattle that we just set up called XR Kitchen. It's a place with computers, a Rift. We're gonna have some Goes there. This is a place where people can go and do stuff with that equipment.
That's awesome.
People can create things with that equipment. We need libraries. We need virtual reality libraries. We need 3,000 headsets that can be checked out by people.
Yeah.
I'm probably the first person that's ever said something.
No.
We need like 30 that we need we need headsets in every library. We need people to
Beverly, you should push that. I mean, because honestly, there are other examples of that. So we have a robotics backpack program where families can check out a robotics backpack.
Oh, wow.
Take it home with them from libraries. Take it home with them and learn basic robotics. So what you're suggesting isn't far-fetched. That's a great idea, and that's the kind of thing that places like the National Science or National NSF, National Science Foundation. That's the kind of thing where they fund things like that.
I can see 30,000
IMLS
headsets
as well
in every city that can be checked out. Every major city, starting there. New York, LA, Seattle. Los Angeles, LA, Houston, whatever. Atlanta.
We should talk about that.
Yeah.
So
it's a great idea.
No, this has been this conversation definitely fired me up. I hope for sure. There's so much science things that was just hip to. Like, I'm hoping for me personally, I know everybody in here, like, I know we all would love a day pass or maybe
sure,
just
of course.
or something. You know, I'm gonna come clean.
Not a problem.
Yeah, but so thank you for your time and too. But and I'll wrap up. Last question: if you could give any advice to your 18-year-old self, what would it be? I know it was only 2 years ago.
My 18-year-old self. Yeah, 2 years ago. Yeah, it's charming. Just do it. Just do it. I mean, theater, my parents were despondent when I told them I was going to go into theater. And I was in a biology. Well, I mean, I wasn't 18 anymore. I had to work to pay for college, so I took a couple years off out of high school, and I just made some money so I could go to college. And I had I was in biology. I was going to be, I think, a marine biologist. And 2 years through that program, I was like, I really like theater. And I do remember being on the phone with my mom and telling her I was going to change my degree. And I mean, yeah, they were not happy. They were very supportive, but they weren't happy about it. And so I don't regret it at all. I'm so glad I did. I'm so glad I did. I learned so much, and I met so many great people, and it launched me on a definitely not a very traditional career, but a really interesting career where I feel like I learn every single day. I feel really challenged. And I would suggest, I wouldn't say I was brave at all, but I was curious. I really wanted to know what if I did this. And so I would just say, just go for it. You know, you got a dream, you got a vision, you should just do it. Because time, I'm telling you, all of you very young people, it goes fast. It goes really, really fast.
Speeds up.
Oh my goodness. And it just goes faster every year. So just get out there and do it.
Yo, I think you were talking to 22-year-old me right now, for sure. Like, I need to definitely just get out there and just do it, for sure. So, thank you. Thank you for, I know we all got to give our thank yous, but thank you.
Well, thank you. Thanks for asking. I appreciate it. I really do.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening. If you haven't already, please subscribe and give us a rating or comment if you enjoyed this content. This episode was brought to you by the City of Seattle's Office of Economic Development and 6R. Mixed and mastered by Joshua Duchesne. Please check the show notes for more information. Thanks again for listening, and until next time, we hope we've inspired you to keep exploring your own journey.